The call came just as Evelyn was finishing dinner. A quiet evening, candles flickering, rain ticking gently against the windows. She had been halfway through her glass of wine when her phone lit up with a name she hadn't seen in months. Dad. Her stomach tightened instantly. For a moment, she considered letting it ring out. But years of conditioning, that deep-rooted instinct to answer when he called, made her pick up. Evelyn. Even his voice carried authority, the kind that didn't ask but expected. "Hi, Dad," she replied, careful, polite, neutral. "It's been a while." There was a pause followed by a heavy sigh. "Yes, too long." "I didn't call to catch up. We have a serious problem." Her pulse quickened. "What kind of problem?" "It's about your sister." Of course it was. It was always about Clara, her younger sister. Beautiful, impulsive, forever rescued by others from the consequences of her own choices. Evelyn could already sense the storm brewing, though she had no idea just how devastating it would be. Her father continued, his voice grave. "Clara's in trouble." "Financial trouble?" Evelyn rubbed her temple. "Again?" "This isn't like before," he snapped. "She owes $500,000. The words didn't register at first. "Half a what?" "She made some bad investments, apparently. Loans, guarantees. I don't understand the details, but the amount's $500,000. The people she owes aren't patient, Evelyn. They've been calling the house, threatening us." She sat there frozen. "Why are you telling me this?" There was another pause, this one longer, heavier. Then his voice turned colder, deliberate. "Because you're going to fix it." Evelyn blinked. "Excuse me? You're the responsible one. You've always been the one who keeps this family together. You've got a good job, saving, stability. Your sister's not built for this kind of pressure." Her heart began to pound. "You can't be serious, Dad. That's her debt, not mine." "I'm not asking," he said, his tone like stone. "I'm telling you. You'll transfer the money, settle this, and we'll figure out the rest later." "That's what family does." She let out a shaky laugh, a sound that came out more like disbelief than humor. "Family? You mean the same family that hasn't spoken to me in over a year? The one that skipped my graduation dinner because Clara was having a bad day?" "That family? Watch your tone, Evelyn." "No," she said, standing up now, pacing the kitchen. "I've watched my tone my entire life. I've watched my words, my choices, my existence, just so I wouldn't upset you or her. But you're asking me to throw away everything I've worked for someone who's done nothing but take." Her father's sigh was sharp. "You're being dramatic," her voice cracked. "Dramatic? You're asking me for $500,000. There was silence, only the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint rain outside. Then came his final blow. "If you walk away from this, don't bother calling yourself part of this family anymore." The words struck harder than she expected. Her throat tightened. She could almost see his face, that same cold disappointment that had followed her since childhood, every time she wasn't enough. He waited for her to speak, but she couldn't. Her voice had deserted her. "Evelyn," he said again, slower now. "Clara's your sister." "I raised you better than this." The line went dead before she could respond. She stood there in silence for a long time, phone still in her hand, pulse echoing in her ears. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. The rain outside had turned to a downpour. $500,000. She couldn't even process the absurdity. She walked to her window and stared out at the city. Lights, each one a reminder of the life she had built brick by brick without anyone's help. Every promotion, every late night, every sacrifice. And yet somehow it still wasn't enough for him. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, memories rushing in like floodwater. The way Clara used to cry to get out of trouble. The way their father always sided with her. The way Evelyn's success was treated as obligation, not pride. By morning, the weight in her chest had hardened into something else. Resolve. She typed a message to her father. "I'm sorry you feel that way, but I won't pay for Clara's mistakes." She hit send, then stared at the screen. No reply, just silence. Evelyn sat there, her heart pounding. As the sun climbed through the rain clouds, dim and gray, but still there, she didn't know it yet. But that message was the moment her old life ended. The next would be the moment she disappeared. The following morning felt surreal. Evelyn moved through her apartment as if in a dream. Coffee brewing, blinds half open, the faint hum of traffic below. The world outside was normal, but inside her mind was chaos. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter, silent. No reply from her father. Not a single message. But when it finally did buzz, her heart jumped. For a fleeting second, she hoped it might be him, an apology, maybe even a shred of understanding. It wasn't. It was Clara. "So you're really not going to help me?" The text was cold, almost accusatory. No greeting, no explanation, no gratitude. Just entitlement, pure and familiar. Evelyn stared at the words for a long time before replying, "I can't. You got yourself into this." The typing bubbles appeared, vanished, reappeared. Then came a stream of messages. Long, frantic, emotional daggers. "You don't understand, Evelyn. They're threatening me. Dad said you could easily afford it. Do you really want to see your own sister hurt? You've always hated me. You're jealous, jealous." The word made Evelyn laugh bitterly. Jealous of what? Of a sister who never lifted a finger but somehow got the world to bend for her. She muted the conversation and turned her phone face down. By evening, her father called again. The sound of his voice made her chest tighten. "I've just spoken to Clara," he said, his tone sharper this time. "She's in tears. She said you called her irresponsible and cruel. Did you ask her why she owes $500,000? Or is that not relevant?" Evelyn shot back. "Don't talk to me like that. She's your sister." "She's an adult," Evelyn said firmly. "She can fix her own mess for once." There was a pause, then his voice dropped lower. "You're being selfish, Evelyn. I don't know what's happened to you." Her throat burned. "What's happened to me?" "I've stopped being your doormat. That's what's happened." "Enough!" His shout echoed through the line. "You always think you're better than us, don't you? Always the martyr, the hard worker, the one who deserves everything. You think money makes you right?" "I think accountability does," she said quietly. He didn't respond right away. She could hear his breathing, heavy and furious. Then coldly, "If you hang up this call, you're no longer my daughter." Something in her broke. Not like a sudden crack, but a slow, irreversible shattering. She felt the tears burn at the corners of her eyes but refused to let them fall. "Then I guess," she whispered. "You only ever had one daughter to begin with." And she ended the call. That night, Evelyn sat on the floor beside her couch, surrounded by memories she hadn't meant to confront. Framed photos, letters, old cards. In one picture, she was 10, smiling proudly beside her father at her science fair. Clara, 5 years old, stood in front, wearing the medal Evelyn had earned because their father thought it would be cute if the little one got the credit. She remembered crying that night, quietly in her room, so no one would hear. Her father had told her to stop being selfish. "You're the big sister. You don't need medals to prove yourself." That's what he'd always believed. Evelyn's strength existed only to serve others, and she'd believed it too. Until now, days passed. The silence grew thicker, heavier. Then, one evening, there was a knock on her door. When she opened it, Clara stood there. Her makeup was smudged, her hair unkempt, eyes swollen from crying, or pretending to. "You really weren't going to answer me?" she said, stepping inside uninvited. Evelyn froze. "Clara, you shouldn't be here. I had nowhere else to go," Clara cried. "They're threatening me, Evie. They said they'll ruin me." "You don't know what it's like." Evelyn crossed her arms. "You think I don't? I've spent years cleaning up after you. Your rent, your fines, your lies. And every time you swore it was the last, this time is different." "It always is." Clara's voice cracked into anger. "You're heartless. You sit here with your perfect job and your perfect apartment, and you can't even help your own sister?" "I helped you," Evelyn said through clenched teeth. "Over and over I did. But I'm done." Clara's expression changed, the desperation twisting into venom. Dad's right about you. You were never really part of this family. You just like feeling superior." Evelyn stared at her for a long, painful moment. Then she quietly walked to the door and opened it. "You need to leave." Clara's face hardened, but she stepped out. "You'll regret this," she hissed, her voice trembling. "When you're all alone, you'll remember what you did to us." The door shut with a soft thud. Evelyn stood there for a moment, hand still on the handle, heart hammering. And then she broke. The sobs came quietly at first, years of pain, swallowed words, and buried exhaustion finally spilling out. By dawn, her eyes were swollen, her voice hoarse. But her mind, for the first time, was clear. She sat down at her desk, opened her laptop, and stared at a blank document. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. She began typing a letter, not to her father, not to Clara, but to herself. A reminder. A promise. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't exist to save people who choose to drown. When she finished, she folded the note and slipped it into her wallet. Then she began searching online for something she hadn't allowed herself to think of until now. One-way rentals, temporary lodgings, disappear without a trace forums. As the first rays of morning sunlight crept through the blinds, Evelyn made her decision. She would disappear, not out of fear, but out of liberation. If her family only loved the version of her that sacrificed everything, then they would have to learn to live without her. The morning Evelyn disappeared, she didn't tell a soul. Her landlord would later say she left everything spotless, the apartment vacuumed, dishes washed, bed made. The only thing missing was her, and her silence. To Evelyn, it felt less like leaving and more like shedding, like peeling off a skin that had grown too tight. She had spent the entire night moving quietly, packing only what mattered: her passport, a few clothes, the cash she had withdrawn from savings, and her mother's old silver locket. Nothing else. By sunrise, she was gone. Evelyn drove west. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed distance. Not miles, but silence. The kind of silence that couldn't be broken by her father's voice or her sister's tears. The city faded in her rearview mirror, replaced by endless stretches of highway. For the first time in years, there was no destination, no one demanding her to arrive, fix, or prove. The radio played softly, an old love song her mother used to hum when Evelyn was little. The sound stung. She hadn't thought about her mother in years. Her mother had been gentle, the buffer between father and daughter, until she passed away suddenly when Evelyn was 16. After that, everything changed. Her father hardened. Clara became untouchable. Evelyn became invisible. It had taken her 15 years to realize she was still living as that same invisible girl. 3 days later, Evelyn found herself in a small coastal town 2 states away, Grayport. Population barely 3,000. It was quiet. The kind of place where no one asked questions because everyone had their own ghosts. She rented a small cabin near the ocean. The owner, a kind woman named Marla, handed her the keys without hesitation. "You here on vacation, dear?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Something like that." She paid cash. No ID, no forwarding address. The cabin was small but peaceful. White curtains, a wooden porch, and the constant whisper of the sea. For the first time in months, she slept without checking her phone. Days turned into weeks. Evelyn's routine became simple, almost sacred. Mornings were for long walks along the shoreline, the salt air washing away the remnants of her old life. Afternoons, she'd sit by the window with her journal, writing letters she'd never send, one for every year she'd spent trying to be enough. She started cooking again, something she hadn't done for pleasure in years. The aroma of garlic and herbs filled the cabin, mixing with the scent of ocean air. It felt like living. At first, guilt would creep in, sharp and sudden like the crash of a wave. She imagined her father fuming, Clara weeping, the police maybe even searching. But as days passed, that guilt softened into something else. Clarity. Her family didn't miss her. They missed what she provided. Her compliance, her money, her silence. Now they had none of those things. One chilly afternoon, Evelyn sat outside watching the tide recede when she overheard the radio from a nearby cafe. Her full name, it was mentioned. Her stomach dropped. Local news. Authorities continue to search for 33-year-old Evelyn Hart, who disappeared from her apartment 2 weeks ago. Her family pleads for her safe return. She froze. The broadcast continued, playing a short clip, her father's voice. He sounded frail, desperate. "We just want her home. She's always been the glue that held us together. We're scared something's happened to her." Then came Clara's voice, trembling, soft, but unmistakably performative. "Please, Evelyn. If you can hear this, come back." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Evelyn's throat tightened. For a moment, she almost believed the tears in her sister's voice. Almost. But then she caught it. That faint tremor of control, the same tone Clara used whenever she wanted something. It wasn't sorrow. It was fear. Fear of facing consequences without her. Evelyn turned off the radio and stared at the horizon. She thought about calling. Just once. To hear what they'd say if they knew she was alive. But she didn't. Not because she didn't care, but because she finally did. For herself, weeks passed into months. The rhythm of ocean and wind became her new language. She started painting again, something she hadn't done since college. Abstract blues and grays that looked like both storms and freedom. Sometimes, she would write journal entries addressed to her younger self. "You don't need to earn peace," she wrote one night. "You deserve it simply because you exist." There were still bad nights, when she'd wake up from dreams of her father shouting or Clara's voice echoing through the walls. But each morning she felt lighter. She even began to laugh again, softly at first, at small things. The seagulls fighting over breadcrumbs. Marla's cat stealing her sandwich. The absurdity of realizing that peace didn't feel dramatic at all. It just felt quiet. But the peace wouldn't last forever. It started with little things. A sense of being watched. Shadows that lingered too long near the dunes. A car she didn't recognize parked down the street for several nights. At first, she told herself it was paranoia. She'd lived under stress so long, her brain was still wired for survival. But then, one morning, she found something wedged under her door, a plain white envelope. No name, no stamp. Inside, a single line written in black ink. "You can run, Evelyn." "But debts always find their way home." Her hands trembled. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. She stepped outside. The car she'd seen before was gone, but tire tracks led down the road. Evelyn stood there barefoot on the porch, the cold air biting at her skin. She thought she'd escaped her family's chaos. But somehow, it had followed her, and deep down she knew this was only the beginning. The morning after she found the envelope, Evelyn barely slept. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the wind brushing against the windows, felt amplified, dangerous. Her mind kept circling the same question. How did they find me? No one knew she was in Greyport. She had paid everything in cash, avoided digital footprints, even used a prepaid phone. And yet someone had left a note on her doorstep, written in ink that looked deliberate, calm, confident, almost taunting. By noon, Evelyn couldn't sit still anymore. She walked to the local diner, the kind of place where gossip traveled faster than coffee poured, and sat at a corner booth. Marla, the cabin owner, spotted her and came over with a kind smile. "Rough night?" "You could say that," Evelyn said quietly. Marla poured her some coffee. "You've been looking over your shoulder all week." "You running from something?" Evelyn hesitated. "Just from the past." Marla gave a knowing nod. "Well, honey, the past has a nasty habit of buying a return ticket." Those words lingered long after Evelyn left. That evening, she returned to her cabin and saw it, the same dark sedan parked across the street again. No plates she could see clearly, tinted windows, engine off. Her pulse spiked. She locked every door, closed the blinds, and sat in silence. Hours passed. The car didn't move. Finally, she forced herself to act. She grabbed her phone and dialed a number she had kept hidden deep in her contacts. Detective Aaron Cole, a private investigator she had once worked with on a corporate fraud case years ago. He picked up on the third ring. "Evelyn, wow, haven't heard from you in ages. Everything all right?" "No," she whispered. "Someone found me. I don't know how. Where are you?" "I can't tell you that yet. But I need to know if you can run a check, see if anyone's looking for me, officially." "Missing persons, maybe?" Her throat tightened. "Yes, my family," he sighed. "Give me a day or two." The next evening, she met Aaron in a nearby town at a small motel cafe. He looked older, a few more lines on his face, but the same steady eyes. "You weren't exaggerating," he said, sliding his laptop around so she could see. There it was, her name on multiple news sites and social forums. Missing person alerts, Reddit threads, even a Facebook group titled "Help Bring Evelyn Hart Home," but something else caught her attention. One post, uploaded 2 weeks ago, wasn't from her family. It was from an unverified user claiming Evelyn had taken off with someone's money. The caption read, "She's not missing. She's hiding. Owes people a lot more than she admits." Her blood ran cold. She looked at Aaron. "That's not true." He frowned. "Do you recognize the username?" "No, but whoever it is, they're trying to make me look guilty." Aaron leaned back. "Could be your sister's mess bleeding into yours. You told me once Clara liked gambling with credit she didn't have." Evelyn nodded slowly. "You think someone's confusing me for her?" "Or she made sure they wouldn't know the difference," he said grimly. "It wouldn't be the first time someone used family names on contracts or fake accounts. Especially if you share a last name." The realization hit her like a punch. "She used me." Aaron gave a sympathetic look. "You want me to dig deeper?" "Yes," Evelyn said, voice trembling. "Find out who these people are." 2 nights later, Evelyn's worst fears were confirmed. Aaron called past midnight. "Evelyn, I found something." Clara took multiple high-interest loans. But the thing is, the guarantor listed on 3 of them was you. Your full name, signature, everything. Evelyn's stomach twisted. "That's impossible. I cross-checked the handwriting samples. It's not yours." "She forged it," Evelyn whispered, gripping the phone. "Yeah," Aaron said quietly. "And the lenders she used? They're not banks, Evelyn. These are private groups, people who don't go to court. They collect differently." Her skin went cold. "So that note wasn't a bluff." Evelyn looked out her window. The sedan was gone now, but its absence felt worse, like the silence before a storm. The next morning, she drove to town, trying to calm the panic twisting through her. Maybe she could still fix this.